Greetings, friends. Randall Nagy here. I'm going to take a moment and call your attention to some advanced Python techniques that I find help me a lot whenever I'm creating user interfaces, and also allow ourselves to review some of the advanced concepts we've talked about both in Python 1000 and Python 2000. Of course, as always, we are indeed using Python 3. So by way of a quick review, we're going to take a step over here to idle for a quick review of some concepts. Now, in my training, many times I mention that in Python, everything is an object, keeping in mind that the first job of the Python interpreter, of course, is to take the literals, in this case, an integer value, and compile it into something that the compiler can use when run. What we see here is that whether we're using an integer or a string, the type command works as we expected, showing that even primitive or basic types are indeed instances of classes, in this case, of course, the class int and string. Also, you may recall from the training that functions are types as well, and whenever we execute a function, and whenever we don't provide the parentheses, of course, we get the class. Otherwise, we'll see what is being returned from an invocation of the function or running the function, as we see here. Clearing the screen, if we choose to redefine our function so as to pass something back to us that's different than none type, we'll see that rather than the default value, we, of course, can return any values we want, up to and including multiple parameters, which of course will be returned to us as an immutable array or a tuple of objects. Also remembering that Python, like every other major programming language, does indeed use zeros to access the contents of arrays, whether they're tuples or lists or other types. We can clear our screen and move back into Visual Studio proper, where I'd like to introduce you to some more advanced concepts. So one of the ancient patterns we have in the industry that allow us to understand that what we're doing is all going to be completed whenever we're working with a single record row or perhaps even an object, we know that there is something called the CRUD pattern. Well, I like to add search in modern time, making it S. For now, we'll simply want to demonstrate this technique. So we'll discuss about the options that we would like to use specifically for creating something, reading something, updating something, and deleting something. We know that at some point in time, we're going to want to have a user interface or a way to interface with our user so as to allow them to do some options. Now, even though we're not going to be reusing this class as a library, I wanted to go ahead and review once again how we know when we're running as the main application, keeping in mind, as we switch back to idle, that even the name parameter itself has a value, much as we would expect. So given that we have our CRUD defined simply as functions, the idea here is that we could have something we're going to call options equal to a dictionary, and that dictionary could have the type of keys, could represent as the keys whatever the user would type, for example, C for create, D for delete, as well as Q for quitting. And no matter whether our functions are built in this case as we would have with the quit, or something we create for ourselves, we can allow the user to enter the value represented by the key of CRUD as well as Q, so as to execute the corresponding function. Keeping in mind that input does indeed return a string, no matter whether we're looking at a single character or not, and keeping in mind we can always reuse our variables, in this case to opt to make sure we're only looking at the first character. The rest of the magic can be accomplished simply by checking to see if what has been entered by the user, and if we find a match, all we need do is execute the function that we have placed into the value portion of the dictionary. Otherwise, we can simply tell the user that she or he has not entered a proper option before continuing our execution. Running our program, we can exercise each and every one of our cases, up to and including typing Q, to see that all is well. Of course, noting here that if we didn't enter anything at all, that indirecting on 0 would cause an error, we can eliminate the review of the subscript of 0 so as to run our program again to see that all is well. So you may ask yourself, what is the value of this? Well, aside from, of course, allowing ourselves to quickly save a lot of real estate by holding all our options in the dictionary, of course, I could easily expand my operations to include my personal favorite modern option, in addition to the CRUD. So I can say I'm going to search, which is nothing more than a redundant read, but it's going to return a list. Then all I need do to execute our option, of course, would simply be to expand my list so as to include our search option as well. So I wanted to share this quick review and advanced topics with you, simply by way of edification and hopefully popularization of a technique that I use a lot whenever I create my user interfaces or state machines that we've talked about in Python 3000. And if you'd like to know more about either beginning, intermediate, or advanced topics, I invite you to go ahead and peruse and use one of my Python 1000, 2000, or 3000 training opportunities on Udemy. Thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the professional software development world.